The air in the courtroom grew taut as the clerk called the next witness. A man in his 50s, sharply dressed with steel gray hair, took the stand. He was introduced as a real estate analyst, the kind who spent decades tracing deeds and ownership records. He didn't look like drama. He looked like numbers and facts, the kind the jury couldn't ignore. After swearing in, he settled calmly, his hands folded as if nothing could rattle him. The attorney rose. "Sir, did you conduct a full review of the Brown family property records?" "I did," the expert said, voice steady. "I analyzed every deed, every quitclaim, every transfer filed in the county registry for the last 12 years. And what did you find?" The witness cleared his throat. "A systematic pattern. At first, properties were bought jointly. Kody Brown and one or more of his wives would be listed together on title. But beginning in 2016, that changed. Over the following years, properties were consolidated. Wives signed quitclaim deeds, relinquishing ownership. And almost every transfer ended the same way. The property was either solely in Kody Brown's name or jointly held by Kody and Robyn Brown." The jury leaned forward. Murmurs rippled through the gallery. Christine stared at the floor, jaw tight. Mary's face was pale, her fingers twisting a tissue. The attorney stepped closer, her voice sharp but controlled. "So you're saying the other wives, Christine, Mary, Janelle, they were stripped out of legal ownership?" The expert nodded. "Correct. They may have believed they still had an interest, but legally they did not. Once those quitclaim deeds were signed, they had nothing. No enforceable rights. No equity." Gasps echoed in the room. The attorney's voice hardened. "In your professional opinion, was this pattern coincidental?" The expert didn't hesitate. "No, it was deliberate. This was systematic consolidation to move assets away from the wives and into the control of Kody and Robyn Brown." "Objection!" the defense barked. "Speculation." The judge leaned forward. "Overruled. The witness has established expertise. Continue." The expert adjusted his glasses. "The paper trail doesn't lie. These women were cut out of property they helped build." The silence that followed was suffocating. The next witness was sworn in, a forensic accountant, a woman with sharp eyes and a stack of binders. She spoke with crisp authority, each word laced with the weight of evidence. "I reviewed the family's financial accounts, including business revenues, personal expenditures, and tax filings," she began. "My findings reveal a concentration of spending. While all wives contributed financially, only Kody and Robyn saw the benefit. Vacations, luxury items, private schooling, all primarily allocated to their household." The attorney stepped forward. "And the others?" The accountant's tone was flat, merciless. "Minimal to no benefit. They subsidized a lifestyle they didn't receive. In fact, I found multiple instances of funds being transferred directly from accounts tied to Christine and Janelle into joint accounts controlled by Kody and Robyn. The money trail is unambiguous." Christine let out a shaky breath. Janelle closed her eyes, lips pressed in resignation. The defense jumped up. "So you're suggesting fraud?" The accountant didn't flinch. "I'm stating facts. Whether it rises to fraud is for the court to decide. But the numbers are clear. Resources were drained from some to enrich others." The final expert was sworn in, a psychologist specializing in coercive control and religiously influenced relationships. Her presence was softer, but her words carried the deepest sting. "I reviewed recorded conversations, journals, and testimony. What emerges is a pattern of coercive influence. Kody Brown maintained authority not through violence, but through spiritual leverage, financial control, and emotional manipulation. Wives were made to feel that signing away rights was both a duty and a test of loyalty." The attorney tilted her head. "So when Mary signed away her share in the house, was that a free choice?" The psychologist shook her head. "Not in the purest sense. She was under coercion. The belief that failure to comply meant moral failing, eternal punishment, or the loss of her family. That is not informed consent. That is psychological control." The words fell heavy. The jury stared wide-eyed. Robyn shifted in her seat, her face pale, tears brimming but unfallen. Kody's jaw was tight, his arms folded across his chest, his eyes hard as stone. One by one, the experts had built a tower of evidence: deeds that erased wives, numbers that drained their accounts, psychology that explained their silence. This was no longer just a messy family split. It was a story of consolidation, control, and betrayal written across property lines, bank statements, and broken hearts. And as the gavel struck for recess, everyone in that courtroom knew the tide had shifted. When the judge called for cross-examination, the defense attorney rose quickly, adjusting his tie as if bracing himself for battle. His tone was sharp, almost mocking. "Mr. Walker," he said to the real estate analyst, "isn't it true that quitclaim deeds are standard in family property transfers?" The witness nodded calmly. "They are common, yes. And many people sign them without issue. Isn't that right? Families use them every day." "That's true," the expert admitted, but his eyes narrowed. "But the context matters. Here, the deeds systematically removed certain individuals from ownership while consolidating assets into the hands of only two parties. That's not routine. That's intentional." The defense smirked. "So you're speculating on intent?" The witness didn't blink. "I'm describing a pattern. 12 transfers. 12 times the result favored Kody and Robyn Brown. That's not speculation. That's math." The jury scribbled furiously in their notepads. The attorney's smirk faded. Next came the forensic accountant. The defense circled her like a hawk. "Ms. Patel, money moves around in large families, doesn't it? People loan each other, share expenses. Isn't it possible these transfers were just ordinary household transactions?" Patel leaned forward slightly, her voice crisp. "Ordinary transactions do not include repeated siphoning from accounts funded by 3 women into accounts controlled by 2. Ordinary transactions don't show personal vacations paid for, with funds earmarked for medical expenses. And ordinary families don't hide transfers by splitting them across multiple accounts to avoid detection." The defense's eyes flicked nervously toward Kody, who sat rigid, face red. "You're painting a picture of theft, aren't you?" Patel didn't flinch. "I'm not painting anything. I'm reading numbers. And numbers don't lie." The blow landed harder than any raised voice could have. Finally, the psychologist took the stand again under cross. The defense lawyer adjusted his tone, softer now, almost condescending. "Doctor, you're talking about coercion. But these are grown women, aren't they? Educated, capable of making their own choices?" "They are grown women," she agreed gently. "Then why should we believe they were under any control at all? They could have said no." The psychologist leaned in, voice calm but unyielding. "Coercive control isn't about chains or locks. It's about fear, obligation, and belief. These women were taught that disobedience meant eternal damnation or the destruction of their families. When you believe your soul or your children are on the line, signing a deed or surrendering money doesn't feel like a choice. It feels like survival." The defense scoffed. "So you're saying religion made them helpless?" The psychologist's eyes locked on his. "No, I'm saying manipulation cloaked in religion made them compliant. There's a difference." The courtroom was silent. Even the defense attorney hesitated before stepping back, visibly shaken. Kody shifted uncomfortably, gripping the edge of the defense table. His jaw was clenched, his knuckles white. Robyn dabbed at her eyes, though whether it was guilt or fear, no one could tell. By the time the judge called for adjournment, the expert's testimony still lingered like smoke in the air. No matter how the defense tried to twist it, the evidence had landed. Paperwork, bank trails, and psychology had stripped away excuses. What was left was not just family drama. It was a pattern of control, financial betrayal, and deliberate exclusion. And for the first time, the jury's faces told the story clearly. They weren't just listening. The next morning, the courtroom buzzed with anticipation. Word had spread through the gallery. Kody Brown would finally take the stand. The man at the center of it all, the patriarch who built the empire and watched it crumble, now sworn to tell the truth. He strode to the witness chair with his usual swagger, but the jury noticed the stiffness in his movements, the way his jaw twitched as the oath was read. "I do," he muttered, sitting heavily, eyes darting toward Robyn as though for silent reassurance. She gave the faintest nod, her face pale and drawn. The attorney wasted no time. She approached, her voice firm. "Mr. Brown, did you instruct your wives, Mary, Janelle, Christine, to sign quitclaim deeds removing their names from property titles?" Kody leaned back, arms folded. "No, they chose to do that. They wanted to. They trusted me." The attorney raised an eyebrow. "They trusted you? Or they believed they had no choice?" "They knew I was protecting the family." His voice cracked, louder than intended. "I did what I had to do. This family—" "Objection," the defense snapped. "He's being badgered." "Sustained," the judge said, though his eyes lingered on Kody, warning him to control his temper. The attorney tried again. "Mr. Brown, can you explain why, after those transfers, the only properties left in the wives' names were parcels of far lesser value? While you and Robyn retained the largest estate, the mansion and the profitable parcels, Kody's lips curled. Because Robyn and I were the only ones still committed. They walked away. You can't reward people who give up. A ripple of shock rolled through the room. Christine shook her head in disbelief. Janelle whispered something under her breath. Mary just stared at him, hollow-eyed, as if she were seeing his soul laid bare. The attorney's tone hardened. So in your view, they didn't deserve equal ownership? After years of financial contribution, raising children, building that family with you? They got what they deserved, Kody snapped. The courtroom froze. The words echoed like a gunshot. The attorney stepped closer, voice low and deliberate. Mr. Brown, isn't it true that while the other wives struggled financially, you and Robyn enjoyed vacations, renovations, and luxuries paid for with shared funds? Kody shook his head furiously. That's a lie. We worked harder. The prosecutor interrupted, slamming down a binder of records. Bank statements don't lie, Mr. Brown. The forensic accountant testified to transfers from Janelle's account to yours. Do you deny those transfers happened? For the first time, Kody faltered. His mouth opened, then closed. He glanced at Robyn, whose hands clutched her tissue so tightly it tore. I don't recall, he finally muttered. The attorney seized the opening. You don't recall, or you don't want to admit the truth. Objection. The defense barked again, but the damage was done. The jury's eyes were locked on Kody, watching him unravel. The attorney pressed once more, voice cutting like glass. Mr. Brown, when you told these women they'd lose their families for eternity if they didn't obey, was that about faith, or was that about control? Kody slammed his fist against the railing. It was about keeping this family together. Together for who? The attorney shot back. For the family? Or for you? The silence that followed was suffocating. Kody's face flushed red, his chest heaving with anger, but no words came. The judge finally leaned forward, his gavel striking once. Mr. Brown, control yourself. The damage, however, was irreparable. The jury had seen the anger, the entitlement, the cracks in his armor. Every word he'd uttered only reinforced what the experts and wives had already laid bare. The empire wasn't about faith or family. It was about power. His power. Robyn lowered her head into her hands, unable to meet the eyes of anyone in the room. The wives, though broken, sat taller now. For the first time, it was Kody who looked cornered, trapped beneath the weight of his own testimony. And as court adjourned for the day, there was no mistaking it. The tide had turned for good. The next morning, the courtroom was packed to the walls. The air was thick with tension. This was the day the lawyers would make their final pleas. The jury sat upright, pens in hand, though most of them knew they had already begun to form their verdicts. The defense rose first, straightening his tie, trying to exude calm authority. He paced before the jury box, hands clasped loosely behind his back. Ladies and gentlemen, let's remember why we're here. This is not a trial about religion. This is not about whether you like Mr. Brown or how he runs his family. This is about property, contracts, and agreements willingly made. Yes, deeds were signed. Yes, money moved. But every one of those actions was voluntary. These women are intelligent, independent, and made choices. You may not agree with those choices, but they are theirs to make. Mr. Brown is not on trial for being imperfect. He is not on trial for being unpopular. He is on trial for fraud and coercion, and the evidence does not meet that burden. This is a family in conflict, not a crime scene. Don't let hurt feelings and personal regrets be mistaken for unlawful acts. Don't punish a man simply for being human. He nodded firmly, trying to project finality, though his voice carried an edge of strain. Then he sat, glancing quickly at Kody, who gave him a curt, approving nod. The prosecution stood slowly, taking a moment to gather papers, though her voice when it came was firm, steady, and laced with fire. She walked directly to the jury, meeting each of their eyes in turn. Choices. That's what the defense wants you to believe. That these women chose to sign away their homes. That they chose to surrender their money. That they chose to submit their will to one man's control. But let me ask you, what kind of choice is it when the alternative is the loss of your family? When you're told your soul, your children, your eternity itself hangs in the balance? That's not choice. That's coercion. That's control. She paused, letting the words sink in, then held up a binder. We showed you the deeds. One after another funneled into Kody and Robyn's hands. We showed you the bank transfers. Money leaving accounts tied to Christine and Janelle, and ending up funding vacations. private schooling, luxuries enjoyed only by Kody and Robyn. And we showed you the expert testimony, the real estate analyst, the forensic accountant, the psychologist. 3 different experts, 3 different perspectives. But they all told you the same story. The story of power taken, trust exploited, and lives dismantled. She lowered the binder, her tone softening but no less sharp. This is not about being imperfect. This is not about being unpopular. This is about deliberate betrayal of contracts, of trust, of family. These women gave everything, and when they were no longer useful, they were stripped of their homes, their finances, and their dignity. And when confronted with the truth, Mr. Brown could only say, they got what they deserved. The courtroom was silent. Every juror's head lifted at that line,